What's up, y'all? Welcome to The Stack. I'm Alex.
I'm Justin.
I'm Pete.
And on The Stack, we talk about a bunch of books that have come out this week, and we're going to kick it off with I think this is a big deal. This isn't normally the sort of thing that we would kick off the show with. Usually it's like some Marvel or DC book or whatever. I mean, who even cares? But,
okay, weird voice.
Weird way to put it. But we're going to talk about the Scumbag #1 from Image Comics, written by Rick Remender, art by Lewis Larosa. The reason I think this should go first is a new Rick Remender book is a big deal. We've been following his writing pretty much since the beginning, and every book out is an event, so it's worth putting this right up front at the top of the show. Reading this book, I know, this is something that Pete just loves a ton. He's very into, he's very excited about. The concept of the book, though, before we get into Pete's feelings about it, I can see his head already nodding, yes, give me more of this.
Yes, I love this.
Is, what if the worst person in the world was responsible for the fate of the world? That's essentially what it is, to the point where they essentially say that line at the end of the book. And in fact, we do meet the worst person in the world who ends up in a situation.
That's the thing. They say like the worst person in the world. He's just like kind of a slacker druggy guy. It's not like he's a fucking head of the KKK or fucking, you know what I mean, a murderer.
Yeah. I guess it's more, to say the worst, I understand what you're saying, but definitely the most down and out.
Right. But what
he has full on diarrhea.
Well, sure, yeah. Who doesn't? The thing is, it's like brand new Rick Remender book. You ready to get your fucking heart broken? This guy writes in such a way that like pulls you in, gets you sucked into this amazing world, and then always breaks your fucking heart. I'm scared. I'm scared about this book.
But that's what I love. What I love about Rick Remender books, and it has been a long time since he launched a new one. We've been reading Low. We've been reading Black Science for a long time. And
Deadly
those books
Class.
are Deadly Class.
Yeah, Deadly
of course,
Class, man.
Ongoing. But these other books are sort of wrapping up. Deadly Class feels like it's going to keep going for a bit longer. And to have a new book is sort of precious. And what I love about it is he takes extreme premises and pushes them. And what he always does is, on the art side, brings in truly like evocative artists. And in this case, it is the same thing. Like, when he says it's the worst person in the world, like we see it in like, I would call this hyper realistic color and line, and it's great. It's great. It's really smart of him to not shy away from these truly disgusting things if the point of the book is this person is at his lowest and he has to become a world-changing person.
Or maybe he won't. I don't know.
Yeah.
Starting a book with a Charles Bukowski quote is just a fantastic way to start something that's this kind of like mayhem, or it's just about like a drunken dude who does a lot of drugs and shit. That's like the perfect thing. But man, just seeing a guy doing drugs and shitting on the streets really makes me miss New York City. You know what I mean? Like back in the 80s and 90s, the real New York. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, Pete, you were the mayor of New York in the mid-'80s, right?
Oh, yeah, man. Just love doing drugs in the street, shitting anywhere you wanted. Those are the days!
You were a very controversial mayor.
Before Giuliani took it all away. I mean, come on. Where's that guy now? What's he doing?
Yeah. It is truly crazy to think of a time when everyone was like, Giuliani, what a hero. And now truly, and like, it's not at all political, but he is looked upon as a legit Nosferatu style monster. There's so many Twitter memes of him being like, look, his hand's dead. Or look,
he's such a sad sack. Like, that's the thing that's such a bummer about it, is like he went from, I'm the guy that's going to clean up New York, this is very controversial, to he did some sort of thing where he's like, I'm going to reveal information, and he taped a video and he opens up this folder and there's nothing in the folder. And he's just like, well, there's evidence that I have here, and there's nothing in there. It's just sad. That's not the point of this book. Let's get back to the Scumbag thing. The thing that
let me just say one more thing on that. I do think this book spins out of the era we're in. Like, I think it's about a person who is not ready to be elevated to a position of power, who is in that position of power, which I feel like is a comment on our time, both Trumpian and everything around our current political situation, where it's like, these people shouldn't be in charge of stuff like this. This book feels very timely to me.
I agree. The thing that I wanted to get back to, though, that Pete was saying about the worst person in the world, is it's not racist murderer or anything like that. It's nails on chalkboard worst. Which I think they make pretty clear through the writing, where it's the sort of guy who within seconds of meeting him, you're like, oh God, fuck this guy. This is the worst. Oh God, no.
The guy at the parties looking to steal beers that aren't being looked at. You know what I mean? Like, oh.
And it's great. The specificity going on there is so clear, to the point where it builds to, very graphically, as we were talking about, him shitting himself on the street, which is horrifying and gross. And mind you, not the first time Rick Remender has written a person on drugs diarrhea scene. That was way back in Deadly Class. Classic scene in Deadly Class.
Classic. He loves a good shitting story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, and let me throw this out as well to go back into early Remender. This book sort of reminds me a little bit of Fear Agent, in that it is a person who is super down and out, having to maybe elevate themselves.
What I'm really interested in is reading the second issue of this book, because if Rick Remender has showed us anything, it's he always has a very clear concept in the first issue, and then he blows it insanely out of proportion by the second issue.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they're going to do that yet, but I'm excited to find out.
100% true.
Yeah. But good, great debut.
It's
Great debut.
It's fun to see a new book that he's working on. I'm very excited to see where this goes. Crazy first issue. Fantastic art. Definitely check it out.
Moving on to Fantastic Four, number 25 from Marvel, written by Dan Slott with art by R.B. Silva, Paco Medina, and Will Robson. This, I believe, is the beginning of the status quo change that Dan teased back when he was on the live show with us chatting about this book. So this is kind of a big deal. There's a lot of stuff that goes down in this book as we celebrate this mini anniversary of the Fantastic Four. What'd you think about the issue?
46 pages. This, to me, is a great, Fantastic Four story. You know, like, you get this kind of shit goes down, only the Fantastic Four can save the day. Then what's nice about it is, you've got Reed and Sue talking a little bit about the holes in their marriage, about how they lied to each other a little bit. And I'm hoping that moving forward, their relationship can get a little bit better, because I'm sick of the classic, Sue Storm does so much more for the family than Reed does, and he's just constantly busy and can't be bothered. So I think this was a really cool story, great use of the whole family. I'm very excited. Even a cool Watcher stuff, which you don't normally kind of get.
No, people are always like, that Watcher is very cool.
No, but also, just this whole thing of we're the Watcher, and we've watched all these amazing events happen in Marvel, whether it's through comics or TV or movies, but just these splash pages, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh, that was cool. Hey, Cosmic Ghost Rider got a shout out.
Well, see, I would take some issue with your statement, Pete, because I think what Dan Slott is so great at, and why he's such a great match for the Fantastic Four, is his whole thing is everything old is new again, or everything new is old again. Either way you want to take it.
Which one is it?
It's sort of both, because what he does here is he's like, yes, Reed and Sue aren't getting along because Reed has a secret from Sue. But what's great about this issue is Sue also has a secret from Reed, and she has her own life, and she's doing her own thing, and so they get to meet on equal ground. Great. The thing is it's clobbering time.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to be wrecking shit. But then he's like, I have actually a family at home I have to get back to at the same time. Dr. Doom is still a villain, but he's actually the Dr. Doom. It's the Dr. Doom-Reed Richards relationship from the very beginning of the comic, where they're contemporaries. And even though they are wildly superpowered, they're meeting here as you were keeping a little secret from me. And he's like, I was. Figure it out. And they're like, well, let's figure it out together. It's just, Dan Slott is just a tactician when it comes to picking apart with like a fine tweezers these Marvel just legends and finding a new way to reconfigure the stories by just slightly tweaking little bits and pieces.
I did want to, while we're talking about Doom, Doom is one of my favorite villains, and Dan Slott did a great job of like the way Doom was just like, acknowledges the fact that Sue Storm was in the room before she revealed herself was such a badass Doom moment. Dan Slott is just killing it on this book.
Yeah, this is a really fun issue, and like you're talking about, a bunch of fun teases for the future, a new setup of new status quo for the team, as well as certain members of the team, as well as the Watcher and other things. Just a great package. I had a blast reading this issue. Moving on to Chilling...
Justin loves good packages.
Moving on to Chilling Adventures of Sabrina presents Madam Satan #1 from Archie Comics, story by Eliot Rahal, art by Julius Ohta. So we talked about this on the live show a little bit, but this exists in a weird mix of continuity between the comic books and the TV show, not necessarily contradicting either, but not existing like this is between season 1 and season 2 of Sabrina, or part 1 and part 2, or part 3 and part 4, or anything like that. It just kind of is, and about Madam Satan. The real standout of this issue to me is Julius Ohta's art, which does a great job of channeling Robert Hack from the original series, but finding a different way around it. What'd you think, Pete?
Yeah, I mean, because when you think about it, the only person who would want to be a principal at a high school is, somebody who is in hell. You know what I mean? Someone who wants to bring hell to the people. So to me, this made a lot of sense. Like, oh yeah, the Queen of Hell would love to be a principal at a high school. That's the perfect job for them. And this is like a real fun kind of like setup. Madam Satan is glorious in the Sabrina TV show, and it's nice to see this character kind of thrive in this comic as well.
This does a good job of being sort of the TV show, but hearkening back to the comics that originally inspired what went on to become the Sabrina TV show, like the Afterlife with Archie and the Sabrina comic that Roberto Aguirre-Sacasa then developed into the show. So, like, it's great. And to your point, Alex, the art is just amazing.
Yeah.
Throughout.
Good stuff. Very impressive. Next up, Iron Man #2 from Marvel, written by Christopher Cantwell, art by Cafu. When we talked about the first issue of this book, I think we were pleasantly surprised by the change in direction here as Iron Man is going back to basics. Here we get a little bit more on that, veering on the side of he kind of has a death wish a little bit, or at least a injure himself wish as he's trying to move back to be a hero. But I got to say, I'm loving this take. I just think it's so refreshing to see a Tony Stark who is just being a hero and going on fights and fighting people and being a human being for a change. It's great.
I agree. This felt like a comic that I would have read back when I was like in high school. Like, it is just Iron Man like dealing with shit. Like, of course he's fighting Absorbing Man, the ultimate like early run of a series villain is Absorbing Man. And I love the guest stars throughout, and Iron Man just sacrificing himself. Like, Cardiac shows up, another. It's a Spider-Man villain, technically, who is just like sort of Iron Man-y in a lot of ways. And this felt like some good classic fun.
Yeah, it was fun to see Hellcat. It's all right. It's okay.
Pete, do you not like an Iron Man?
No, I mean, this comic has gone through so much stuff, and it's just crazy. Like, okay, great. It's back to Tony Stark, but I don't know. Cool.
Well, what do you want it to be then?
I want. It was just weird because it's like, oh, Tony Stark's not Iron Man anymore. Okay, cool. And there was this really cool character who was trying to take on the mantle, but then was like, nah, we're gonna go back to Tony Stark. And then it's like, okay, but why? And then it's just like, oh, it's back to basics, Tony Stark.
So you're upset that it's not Riri, is what you're saying.
I liked Riri. I like the possibility of new stories. I just think that Iron Man has done a lot of amazing things, so let's see something amazing. You know what I mean? Let's see why we're seeing Iron Man again instead of something new.
All right. Fair enough. Next up, Stillwater number 2 from Image Comics, written by Chip Zdarsky, art by Ramón K. Perez. We talked about the first issue of this as well and liked it quite a bit. Guy goes on a road trip, ends up in a town where nobody ever dies. His friend gets killed outside the town, and it turns out at the end of the first issue that he may actually be a natural-born resident of the village. We find out many more effed up things about the town in this issue. What did you think about this? And also, given that it drew some comparisons to Revival, controversial comparisons to Revival, the Tim Seeley series that had kind of a similar premise, at least at the start, do you feel like it's veering off enough at this point?
It's tonally quite different, I would say. I don't want to get into, like, is it wrong to have a book this close premise-wise? Because I enjoyed reading this, the first and second issue. It feels like at the end of this issue, we're setting up sort of what the deal is going to be. This guy's the third person who's been invited into the town. Clearly, we're going to meet these other two people and what that means, his relationship to his mother and how the town works. All that is fun. Like, I'm excited to get into that. Revival felt like very different tonally. It was about people who, it was established relationships and how they were sort of dealing with this new status quo. So I think, to me, it's different enough to exist separately.
They feel like different types of horror, right? Like, as Tim Seeley is very good at, it's a little more slasher horror, it's a little more graphic horror, a little more fun horror. This is more in line with The Wicker Man, I think, and that sort of, or Midsummer, that sort of thing.
Ooh, that's a good comparison, yes.
And so, yeah, I agree. I do think they're different. There's certainly a danger there that they're going to weave together too much. But right now, I think they can both exist, and that's okay.
I would just like to say, as someone who's lived in a big city for a really long time, this is why I don't like small towns. They scare the shit out of me. I love this thing of, like, playing with the creepiness of a small town and, like, all these people who know each other and you're the outsider kind of coming in. I think that's a great idea to start a story. And I think, sometimes when writers are, we're all pulling from the same pool, so sometimes ideas might overlap. You'd like to give somebody the benefit of the doubt. Hopefully it's not a ripoff, but I do not know. But as far as this is concerned, the little kid in the beginning was so fucking creepy with that wolf. I was scared shitless, and I'm interested to see where this goes. And it's really fun, this idea of if people can't die, then people would just kind of like loosey-goosey shoot each other because, there's going to be no damage. But it is kind of crazy right now to see a cop fucking just shooting first and then talking later. It's kind of, it hits a not fun chord right now.
Yeah, it's not crazy to see that. That happens a lot in this world. Pete, real quick, when you said you're scared shitless, could you give us just a sort of scale, a power ranking on the different types of scared you are, just so I know what you mean when you say that?
Well, they're scared like, oh, my stomach hurts a little bit, you know what I mean? And then there's like...
Your stomach hurts a little bit.
Yeah. And then there's like...
Oh. I ate too much candy.
Yeah. You got like
so
a pain.
You're scared candy. Let's call it that.
Okay, yeah. And then scared shitless is, like you're in real trouble.
Oh, so there's two parts to the scale?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I have a tummy ache, and then I have no shit in me whatsoever.
Yeah.
So and let me just also ask,
part.
Quick follow up on that. When you say you're scared shitless, that means you've shit everything out, like you're fully, you fully
empty,
like on the street
inside.
You've on the street scumbag style diarrhea,
right?
Or are you full of shit and you just can't get it out?
No, yeah, you're the scumbag on the street who's emptied
but you're
it all
100% clean at this point. Like you're just,
I'm an empty vessel.
Cleared out. Yeah. You're an empty nest.
So you read this comic and you like fully just like rooster-tailed yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
While you were reading it, I got you. Okay,
yeah. Great.
Then put that on the cover.
Something that I've been doing. I've been going back to doing the transcripts of the episodes, and I've been trying to pull out quotes. Quotes from each of the episodes and like put them out there in the hope of getting maybe some pull quotes or something like that on a book. Yep. So I think we could say Stillwater, it'll clear the shit out of you.
Yeah, you'll go full rooster
Pull your
tail.
own quotes, Zelbs.
You go full rooster tail for this book.
Batman 101 from DC Comics, written by James Tynion IV, art by Guillem March. This is following right up on the Joker War as Batman grapples with the knowledge that Joker might have been right, and he has to, in fact, change. He's got to up his game.
Game.
As he talks to Catwoman about it. Pete, I'm sure you have some feelings about this because, spoiler, Catwoman and Batman decide to be on a break for a year. What'd you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I liked the kiss. I thought the kiss gave us hope, but the old taking a break is just, that's heartbreaking. Don't take a break, guys. Say
Don't take a
yes
break.
to love.
Did
Don't
it work
take a
in
break
Friends?
from love.
In the TV show Friends? Famous romantic comedy.
We're on a break.
Yeah.
I like
Alex,
this
so
book.
let me ask you, are you hyping up that phrase or are you doing a Ross impression?
I think I'm doing...
Ross. It was Ross.
No, I'm doing Ross, but I think it's one of the characters from Seinfeld being like, Jerry!
Oh, you mean Jerry Seinfeld?
Yeah, no, I think
Yeah, it's
Jerry
a cross
says his own
between
name.
Seinfeld
Like that.
one of the
and
characters?
Friends.
Jerry
And
Seinfeld
that
is always
character
like,
is Seinfeld?
Jerry! He's like a Pokebot. Jerry!
It's hard for me to tell what you're talking about. I love Guillem March's art.
Yes.
And especially in issues focusing on not just Batman, but the Bat family. Always great to see. I will say, and this is being picky, but Grifter still doesn't sit with me.
What's the deal with
Really?
this mask?
You don't like a billowy mask? You
got
don't
such
like
a
a
loose
billowy
mask.
mask?
I'm fine with a billowy mask. I mean, I wear a cloth mask for when I go out, and it does hang a little low in a Grifter style.
Can I, not to interrupt your flow here, but when you're wearing that mask out, do you take it and then pull it up to your forehead?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
And it blows with little wrinkles in it, just like Grifter's does. No, it's just something like the Wildstorm universe of it all, I'm just like, this guy doesn't quite fit with these characters to me.
I agree with you on Grifter. Never quite got him. Don't like the mask. But I do like what James Tynion is setting up here with Batman versus Grifter and this greater mystery of who Grifter works for. That seems like that's something that potentially is going to tie in going forward. And that's a fun place for it to go. Batman versus the Wildstorm universe. Great. All in on that.
I do
Also,
love Wildcats.
It was cool that, Clown Hunter got a shout out in this book.
You love that guy.
Now,
Great, don't
Alex,
say anything.
we talked about this on the live show, but as someone who's married to a clown, are you worried?
We definitely we added an extra lock to the door because my wife has been doing that thing where she pulls the bed sheets up to her neck and says, "I'm scared."
Yes, because as you know, your wife is modeled on Charlie's grandparents in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yes, exactly. We sleep with another couple in our bed. All right, Black Magic number 15 from Image Comics, written by Greg Rucka and art by Nicola Scott. Always a great issue every single time. Here, we're getting the fallout of the last couple of issues as our main character deals with her new burgeoning relationship with a fellow cop, while in the background, I think for the first time we see hell or something like that.
Yeah, she's getting crazy in the background.
Yes.
This comic that was very sort of austere for so long about the witchiness of it, and now we're like fully in witch world, which I love.
A lot of pointy, kind of like pyramid looking things in that hell.
Great. Thank you, Pete. We'll use that one for the pull code for this issue. Nicola Scott art, as usual, is the hero here. Just absolutely gorgeous. But I love sort of almost taking a break issue in a way. There's been so much harrowing, terrifying stuff every issue. To take some time here and really deal with the relationships of the characters, I thought was really nice.
Yeah, I agree. And the art, it feels like it gets better. There's just something about it's so detailed, but it keeps getting, I guess maybe cleaner is the right word. It's great. How do you feel about the French computer? You don't see French computers very often.
No, not usually.
Except in France.
No, even in France, they still use English. Everybody's like, I cannot read this.
I mean, I'm a little disappointed that she's not listening to her cat more. You know, like if you have a magical cat, I feel like you should pay attention and listen to it, especially when it knows more things than you. And that's always frustrating when a character isn't listening, to people they should be listening to.
As a new cat owner, Pete, is your cat magical? And if so, what is that cat saying to you?
Well, I'll tell you what. She does have one of those mystical eye things, like the Prince album over her left eye, which is kind of freaks me out. And I do think that cats can like see into different like realms and stuff. So yeah, the cat freaks me the fuck out.
Nice. That sounds like a nightmare to deal with every day.
Yep.
Every day you wake up and you're like, you look at your cat and you're rooster tailing because you're scared shitless.
That's right. That's how I start my day.
Wow.
Oh, God. From day to night, let's talk about Werewolf by Night, #1 from Marvel Comics, written by Taboo and B. Earl, art by Scot Eaton.
Transition.
Here is another character that I'd never quite gotten just based on the name. And they try very hard to explain it in this book, but the idea of like, I'm a werewolf, but by night. It's like, well, most werewolves are by night, I think.
Well, but I take it the other way. I think the name is sort of saying like, not just a werewolf where it's like a once a month. It's a werewolf by all nights. Because if it's like, if the character was named like Werewolf Normal, like or Werewolf Monthly,
right?
It's like less fun.
It does come out monthly. So there is that. But on the other hand, he turns back into a human in this very first issue where he's like, I'm a werewolf by night. Well, now I'm a human. It's still nighttime.
I say a lot, I'm a human by night to people. And they're like, what do you mean?
I thought this book was okay. It was honestly frustrating to me that the part that was fun and exciting was the last page of the book. Like that to me, without getting into spoilers unless we want to, that to me felt like, okay, this is the part you needed to put at the front of the book instead of all this setup that I didn't necessarily care about personally.
Well, let me say, I liked this, I guess, more than you, it seems, because it feels like it's a Marvel Comics book, but it feels like this could be an Image Comics book. Like it establishes a world around this character that isn't relying on other superhero, other Marvel universe things. And I like the characters a lot. Like we talked about this on the show with Cullen Bunn and whatnot, like the horror infiltration into superhero comics I've been really enjoying.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the reveal was fun, but I thought the more fun was with the granny, pressuring those two to, start a family. I thought that was really fun.
So your favorite part of this comic was the grandmother pressing them to have children?
Yeah. Come on, Mom, he's a werewolf. I get, but I think that also this was like,
just real quick, how's your relationship going, Pete?
Good, man. It's going good. Thanks for asking.
No problem.
But I think that, like, this book is kind of over the top, whatever. I just thought, like, the real down-to-earth moments were kind of nice. And also, like, you never know, man. The guy who cleans the toilets could be a werewolf. The person who collects the recycling, could be a mummy. You got to be, nice to people because you don't know what their superpower is.
I think that every day.
Yeah.
I'm like,
it would make sense if they switched jobs, honestly, because I feel like the mummy could just take some of that wrapping and refill the toilet paper rolls.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Honestly, whenever I go out in New York City, I'm always like, are you a mummy? To people.
Let's move on to talk about Big Girls #3 from Image Comics, story and art by Jason Howard. I think we've gone back and forth a little bit about these issues. Generally, Jason Howard's art is great. This takes place in a world where large women and large men are fighting. The men are monsters, or are they? And the women are not monsters, or are they? And they're fighting in the ruins left of the world. Find out a lot more about it this issue that really mixes things up, I thought, in an interesting way. Definitely confuses the metaphor perhaps a little bit, but certainly makes the story that we're following more fascinating. What did you guys take away from it?
Oh, go ahead.
You go.
I completely agree. I'm very happy with this kind of new development in this issue where, the men aren't just total D-bags. I kind of like the reveal in this issue, gives things a little bit more complication. I'm very excited to see how this moves forward and what the kind of reveals are going to be. The art's the real hero of this book. This is becoming a very interesting book, and I'm getting into it more and more with each issue.
This book feels like an episode of The Outer Limits. Did you guys ever watch that when you were younger? Yeah. Like where it was like it took a premise, a sci-fi premise, and it just like played it up, and then there's a twist, and then you landed the ending. And so I definitely like this progression. I think the art is really nice. It reminds me of like Ryan Otley in a lot of ways.
Jason Howard did. What was the wolf thing that Robert Kirkman did? Right. I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Science Wolf? Science
Wolf?
Science Dog.
Science Dog.
I think Jason Howard did Science Dog. I'm going to look that up while you're talking.
You should look that up.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So all we have to do while Alex is looking this up is talk.
Yeah, let's just do a little soft shoeing, kill some time,
We don't. It's not killing time. It's bringing more of our personal lives into the fold.
How's your family, Justin?
A family?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Very good. They're right upstairs.
Yeah.
Yes, there several members of my family were doing laundry over the course of our tapings this evening, and every time my washer and dryer finish, they each make a little celebration song.
No, I'm sorry, they did Super Dinosaur together.
There it is.
Okay. I thought maybe it was the shark one.
How'd everything go while I was looking that up? Good.
Great. We had a totally normal friend conversation.
Yeah, it turns out Justin's wash and dryer, because he's such a fucking big-time rich guy, they play like celebration songs. Like you probably have to pay extra for that.
No, that's definitely not.
Every time his wash and dryer finishes, it's like, celebrate clean clothes. Come on.
No, man, that would be great if that's what it did.
Man, Pete, you should sell that. You should sell that to Whirlpool.
Yes.
Let's move on. Talk about Batman White Knight presents Harley Quinn #1 from DC Comics, story by Katana Collins and Sean Murphy. This is, of course, spinning off of the White Knight universe of stories that Sean Murphy has been building up. This is a very different Harley Quinn who is out of the game. Batman is in jail. The Joker is dead. She's on her own, but she gets sucked back into it by a Joker wannabe. Or is it the Joker himself? What do you guys think about this book?
Well, I mean, first off, the art's amazeballs. This is kind of a newer take, a fresh take on the old Quinster. You get a flashback to her and Jack meeting, and I think it's interesting. I'm not like upset at the changes. I think it's a fun last page. I kind of want to work alone, and by alone I mean me and my two hyenas. I'm on board. I'm interested to see where this goes. I think we need more Harley Quinn. I don't think there's enough of Harley Quinn. We got to get more.
I will say, before you get into anything, Justin, I think we already have our pull quote for this. It's, I'm not upset at the changes.
Pete, when you say you need more Harley Quinn, what do you in life or in this comic?
Yeah,
this comic features a lot of Harley Quinn.
Harley Quinn is a very popular character. I don't think DC has caught on yet. They haven't put enough Harley Quinn in books yet. I barely see her, so it'd be nice if they started using her more.
Well, let me say the White Knight sub-universe is interesting to me because it's a little. I like this book and I like the Harley Quinn in this book, but I'm like, oh, we're so far away from the normal, like the reality of the DC universe right now. So I'm like, that to me it takes me out of it because the book is so far removed from sort of the normal storytelling that the normal continuity, I guess. But I have enjoyed these White Knight books. The art is truly amazing. I mean,
that's the real hero there.
Yeah. I'm curious how much longevity this pocket universe has in the DC universe.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move on. Dune, House Atreides, #1, written by Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson, illustrated by Dev Pramanik. This is from Boom Studios, I believe, right? This is...
Yeah, it's Boom.
Thank you. I forgot to write that down. Interestingly... I mean, as we were talking about with the Wonder Woman 1984 book a couple of weeks back, this is, again, a book that was clearly there to tee up the movie that was supposed to come out this year, and instead is coming out a full year later. But at the same time, it is riffing off of the book. It's teeing up the movie. It's telling you a little bit more about Dune and the world. So what did you think about this? Does this stand on its own, given that the movie is now not coming out for basically a full calendar year?
Well, I'm curious if some of the scenes here are from the movie. Like, is this bullfighting scene, or Space Bull, or whatever it's called, is that a scene we're going to see in this movie? Because this made me want to see the movie.
Really?
Yes. It made me want to see sort of the more streamlined, visually dynamic version of this comic. What this reminded me of, though, as I was reading it, is like X of Swords or 10 of Swords. It reminded me of like a version of that where I'm like, wait, who are any of these characters?
It definitely, it kept jumping around. I mean, granted, the books are very expansive. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of mythology. I thought this looked very nice for what it is. Dev Pramatik's art is very pretty. And like you were mentioning, the gladiator scenes or the bullfighting scenes were very nicely laid out. But I couldn't help but wish while I was reading this that this was almost more in the European style, that this felt like the sort of thing, if you're going to do Dune, get like a Mobius to do it, or Mobius Light or something like that to give it that sense, because it should be weird and off-putting, not consistent with current comic books at all,
Right. Yeah, especially when the movie is, I mean, we don't know this, I guess, but is probably going to be like visually stunning.
Yeah.
And like purposefully so. So the comic should reflect that a little bit.
I agree. Let's move on to another one. Dark Knight's Death Metal Robin King #1 from DC Comics, written by Peter J. Tomasi and Tony Patrick, art by Riley Rosmo and Daniel Sempere. You cannot go wrong with Peter J. Tomasi and Riley Rosmo at all. I mean,
great team.
I'm not the hugest fan of the idea of Robin King, who's basically a Bruce Wayne, who's an evil teen, who's a Robin. But man, this book is killer. Just so good. What'd you guys think?
I mean, this kind of like universe is just kind of cranking things up to 11 here. So it seems like everybody's kind of having fun with the overtopness of it. And again, we get a kind of a funeral thing here, but an interesting take where he hears a Robin at the funeral that kind of draws him. I think it's the like Robin King messing with Animal Man was really intense. And then the Blue Beetle getting eaten by beetles. This is just kind of crazy, fun, over the top shit. I think this kind of event is like a fun, like, hey, let's just crank this up and see what happens. And every book has been kind of like art-wise, really funly, kind of like driven towards these monsters and over-the-top villains. So why not?
Why not? I mean, to your point, Alex, like, this team is so good. And especially in a book where it's just all about hitting different aspects of the DC universe, like Animal Man, Red Tornado, Blue Beetle. Great to see all of these characters. Him just like riding Firestorm down and defeating him. Like,
yeah, that was messed up.
It's all great. And I don't know, like, Robin King isn't someone who I'm like, God, I can't wait to keep seeing more of this guy. But I think he is one of the more memorable characters from this event. Sea of Bruce Wayne's, the Robin King definitely sticks out as one that is more threatening and more interesting.
Yeah, I agree. Now, from children who are killing something to something is killing the children, number 11.
Oh, come on.
Boom Studios.
He's been working on
Written
this
by
for a week.
James Tynion IV, illustrated by Werther Del Daria. We're really
And just for you guys listening, the way we work is I actually hold up a cue card, and Alex reads that down because we workshopped it.
I hold up a cue card, and Alex.
No, that's
I'm sorry.
mine.
That's your line.
one's-
That's your line.
That's
Sorry
mine. Yeah.
about that.
Yes,
So that's how where we work in a classic SNL model where it's all handwritten cue cards.
Yeah. Fun fact, Justin really great at writing cue cards.
100% right. That's why I'm a line producer.
Yeah. One of the things that line producers do.
Yep.
So in this issue, we're continuing, like we talked about almost every issue, there's little bits of information that are eked out every issue, but it still feels so present and so terrifying as our main characters are trying to get away from these monsters who are attacking the town, who are killing the children. But at the same time, the organization she works for is mustering forces of their own, and it seems like we're heading towards a climactic showdown in the next issue, which is all very exciting. Every issue of this is great.
Yeah.
And the amount of information we get is very controlled. Like every issue of this feels like a scene or two scenes from a movie, as opposed to so many comics where it's so much happening. This feels very just controlled pacing wise in a way that is very different from other comics, and visually it lets us really just chew these horror images up as we get to see them.
Yeah, this was intense. I was very happy with the kind of information we finally get about our kind of main character and her kind of relationship a little bit to this organization. Love the kind of dragon guy overseeing things, but it's also crazy in this comic how people are wearing masks. How we're wearing masks, and so that's kind of freaking me the fuck out a little bit. But man, nothing creepier than a one-eyed fucking teddy bear, man. This book continues to be amazeballs. The art, the story, nothing creepier.
I'll tell you what, maybe they've already done this, but they should make masks based on something is killing the children. I'd wear one of those. Those would be fun.
Oh, that's a great idea. Pete, would you, now if a one-eyed teddy bear is scary, what about a two-eyed teddy bear?
Oh, man.
One-eyed's more scary, man.
What about a no-eyed teddy bear? Terror.
I mean, a terror bear does sound scary.
Let's move on to our X of Swords block, Excalibur number 13 from Marvel, written by Tynion Howard. And what? What?
I was hoping we would save that block for last, but all right.
I like the book we're saving for last. I think we made the right choice, Alex.
Okay. Yes. Written by Tynion Howard and art by R.B. Silva. And then we got X-Men number 13 from Marvel, written by Jonathan Hickman and art by Mahmoud Asrar. Unlike the previous months, we're only getting previous weeks, we're only getting 2 issues this week. They're not tied together. They're each their own stories. In Excalibur, we find out what's going on with Captain Britain, who is now Betsy Braddock, and her siblings as they go to Otherworld and tangle with Otherworld. And in X-Men number 13, we find out the fate and backstory of Apocalypse, 2 very different stories, but we're really starting to get to the halfway point of this event. So what did you think about these, and what do you think about this event so far?
I really love the way this event started, but I just feel like we're taking too much time with each issue of getting the sword so they can join the battle. It's like, yeah, get your fucking sword so we can get this goddamn fight started. So I'm excited to see how this unfolds. I'm still very much on board, but I feel like they're taking their sweet ass fucking time with each person joining the goddamn fight.
I mean, we got 3 swords in 2 issues. That's pretty. The ratio's right there.
I will say, I love the slow anticipation of building the swords, but every time they get to that scene where everybody's standing in the circle with their swords, it's cool, but I'm also like, how long have they been standing there? Have they just been standing there not talking and staring at each other with their swords? The first person
was like, geez, guys, get a sword.
I do think, them all arriving there could have happened over the course of like 5 minutes. It's just the way the comic pacings. Everyone is doing their own shit on the.
No, this is taking weeks. I mean, weeks between.
No, that's
comics.
how you're reading it. But I do think like everyone could have arrived there like one after the other. Otherwise, you think like.
This is probably a good thing for our podcast to tackle, but how does the linear progression of time work?
Well, here's the thing. It moves forward second by second, minute by minute, unless you go time out and then time stops, and you can do whatever you want for a brief amount of time.
You can say what's going on.
I'm glad you're talking about timeouts.
And then time in, and everything continues on.
No, but I think in comics, Wednesdays are like our Mondays. You know what I mean? Like that's the start of the week.
Oh, interesting. What a...
I like both of these issues.
Do you have
I'll
a
just throw it
calendar
out
in your
there.
house? It's just Wednesday to Wednesdays? You're just like...
Wednesday.
Mondays and
man,
Tuesdays are just lost days for you.
Yeah.
It's always Wednesday somewhere. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Time
nice.
out. Pete doesn't know what he's talking about. Time in.
I like these books quite a bit. I thought the Otherworld stuff was really interesting. And I really like the Braddock family. I thought they're really fun. And the way that Teenie Howard wrote them, delineated them in an interesting way. It also throws an interesting power dynamic into everything that's going on Otherworld, which if they're trying to defend Otherworld, but they hate Otherworld, what's up with that? I guess we'll find out how that plays out. But the big one was X-Men 13, which gives completely retcons Apocalypse, gives a entirely new motivation for everything that he has ever done, which is very, very classic Jonathan Hickman Marvel at this point. But I think it works.
I think it does work as well. Like, and it is weird because it's like Apocalypse, who is like, you know, he's been alive for millennia, but then you're like, wait, that dude was married?
Yeah, right.
And you're like, oh, okay. He had a whole little life. Cool.
Well, and then the other part of it, for those of you who haven't read the book, this is a spoiler, but we find out the reason he's always been looking for the fittest and the strongest to survive is to muster the forces to fight back the beings that are invading Araco and therefore Krakoa and eventually the Earth. So it's actually been this magnanimous, heroic motivation the entire time.
Yes.
Which is kind of an amazing retcon to throw in there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. By the way, Apocalypse has been not evil this whole time.
And I don't know. I bought it. Like, as far as a cutscene to just drop in for us, like, I think that works. And despite the fact that he has been a villain this whole time, if he's trying to find the fittest so he can get back to be with the people he loves, like, that's enough of a motivation for me to be like, okay, maybe this person can now stand with our heroes.
No. I agree. Pete, you disagree.
I would rather watch panels of him trying to put that sword together than to hear about his bullshit family.
Man.
Wait, why would you rather watch him put the sword together?
Because at least that's moving the fucking thing forward.
All right. Well, we're getting to it.
I want to see a sword fight. I want to see a giant sword fight.
You're going to get a big old sword fight.
They're giving me all this goddamn backstory before what's going to hopefully be the greatest sword fight of all time.
What if instead of a sword fight, they just, like, talk it out?
If this is going to be like a fucking Kill Bill situation, I'm going to lose my goddamn mind.
What if it's like the sexual sword fight, Pete? What would you think about that?
That would also suck.
Speaking of that,
it would,
let's
in fact,
jump into
yes.
Let's jump into our next book. Let's jump into our next book.
All right. Let's move from something that you were a little conflicted about, Pete, to a title I know you love. Faithless 2, number 5 from Studios, written by Brian Azzarello.
You can't even, you're cracking yourself up.
Well, I was kind of cracking up because you couldn't stop yawning while I was introducing this. You made the biggest, most adorable lion yawn while I was doing that.
Yeah. You are just a little baby. You're a little baby Simba just waking up from a nap.
I thought this issue
Alex
was great.
is like Scar. Alex is Scar being like, hey, kid, you want to see some porno? And that's what we're doing right now.
Justin.
And
I thought this issue, Justin, actually got to the heart of what you've been talking about for the past couple of issues with this book, where we'd be like, okay, what's going on with this art? They're visiting many wonderful European countries. There's some fucked up shit going on. There's some weird sex stuff going on. But what are we getting to this title? And this issue did it. This issue, like, pulled the lid off, revealed what the title, or at least this part, is about. And I like that quite a bit. How'd you feel about it?
Same way, like, this felt like, I mean, if we can talk about how, like, this book is very sexual, and mixing that with sort of the demonic, and we find out, like, heaven and hell in this universe they're creating. And
hey,
I feel
heaven
like it
fucks too, bro. You know what I mean? Come on.
No doubt. Yeah, no. I know.
Ooh, that's
Pete,
the pull
you
quote
dated
for
like
this book.
several,
Thanks, Pete. You're
several
a machine.
ages. Heaven fucks too. And this, I feel like it has been a lot of buildup, and finally, this is sort of the like release issue where the orgasm issue, where like there's a ton of sex in this issue, and it's about like coming to conclusions.
You didn't have to say it like that. You didn't have to say it like that.
But that's truly what I
No,
think.
he's commenting on coming to conclusions.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is truly what it was written to be, and I respect that.
So let's be we can be honest on this podcast, right? There's a thing that happens in this issue where they're having a threesome, and I've never had a threesome, but I have to assume when it happens, it's like in the book where you start to meld into each other and turn into each other's sexual organs until you become one sort of like human centipede, centrifugal force type thing. Is that correct? You guys are more experienced than I am.
That's been my experience.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, especially when you do weird drugs and then have sex in the woods.
Nice. I thought this issue was very good. Last one we're going to talk about night. Yes, what?
I just want to, while we're being honest, I just want to say, Justin, the next time we're stuck on a boat and drinking with Brian Azzarello, I'm going to have a lot of questions for him.
First of all, how dare you?
The real question is like, don't do those drugs, those weird drugs that we did like last time. Because we should say a lot of this book is based on like our time on the comic book Carnival cruise that we did.
Yeah. The boat was called the USS Faithless, right?
That's 100% right. The Faithless too.
Last but not least, Nightwing number 75 from DC Comics, written by Dan Jurgens, art by Travis Moore and Ramón K. Finally, Nightwing is back to himself. He has his memory again. In this issue, KG Beast is coming for him. He's trying to figure out what's going on with himself, both with his ex-girlfriend, Barbara Gordon, as well as his new girlfriend. We haven't really been following this title, and I got to tell you, I like Nightwing stuff, but I really got off it when he lost his memory.
Yes.
So jumping back into this was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, Rick Grayson was the sort of like devil may care, like I'm bad character that filled in after he lost his memory, and it just didn't work. I feel like it didn't feel at all organic to Nightwing, and so it is good to finally see him back, especially since Nightwing has had so many iterations that have worked in a surprising way, like a lot of the Tom King stuff where he was a super spy. With Tim Seeley working for Checkmate and all of that, like, was great. And it was not Nightwing, but it still worked because he was still inherently himself. And the Rick Grayson stuff felt like such a departure that it was such a bum. It felt like a one-off issue thing where it was like a bummer, but let's get our guy back. And it just lasted for longer. So to see him back here, being himself, is exciting.
Yeah, I also like the Alfred stuff. I thought that was very touching. I'm glad somebody's really dealing with the loss here.
And I like the idea also of bringing back KG Beast, the person who shot him originally, where he lost his memory, and building it up as this big bad villain for Nightwing. I think that's fun. It gives it emotional stakes, ties it into the previous arc, but moves it forward in a very nice way. I enjoyed this book. I was very surprised. I'm glad we checked it out. And I think that's it for the stack. If you'd like to support us, patreon.com/Comic Book Club. Also do a live show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. to Crowdcast on YouTube. Come hang out. We would love to chat with you about comics at Comic Book Live on Twitter, iTunes, Android, Spotify, Stitcher, or the app of your choice to subscribe and listen to the show. comicbookclublive.com for this podcast and many more. Until next time, this is the stack, signing off.